Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Hard Claim with Viva La Sam. I'm Sam, and this is a show where we talk to people who play Blood on a Clocktower and get their player perspective of the game. And joining us for this week's episode is Mags. Thank you for joining.
Hello. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, well, we've got loaded in here good old Sex and Violets, one of the base scripts. Always great to see. We've sent out some characters, and you've drawn the Philosopher token. So I guess the first question would be, do you use it on night one?
Oh, I guess it really depends on how saucy I'm feeling on night one. I'm like I will say I am very much a vibes player in the game. I'm not very mechanical. I'm not great at like the mechanical solves, which is kind of why I wanted to do S&V tonight because I've kind of been running like drills for my brain and trying to get better at unspinning the like logical interactions. But I also just love the way that like weird, chaotic social plays can also yield really interesting information and help move the story forward. For the good or the evil team, even better. Minion is my happy place. We're we're in a 12-player circle, so given that, I think that I would probably not spend it on night one and would try to talk to a few folks and feel things out a little bit before I probably pull the trigger on night two.
Yeah, makes sense. So with that in mind, let's say you and I are talking at the start of day one. What would you claim to people? What would you claim to me?
Oh, this or that. I might walk straight up to someone and be like, "Hey, you want to do ones?" And they'd be like, "I don't know. What would you say? Do you want to do one, Sam? I love doing hard claims.
I only do hard claims, so
It is the name of the show."
yeah.
So I'll probably say that I'm the artist. Haven't spin it yet. How about you?
Cool. Oh yeah, I would just say that I'm the philosopher.
Oh, okay. Have you used
Yeah,
it yet? Okay, great.
yeah. I don't know. It's funny because when I named this channel Hard Claim, it wasn't because I enjoyed hard claiming. I was still doing. I think maybe at that time I graduated to doing 2 for 2s instead of 3 for 3s.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
but really, over time, I've grown to enjoy. I swear it's not a branding thing, but
Yeah.
I just do hard claims, and sometimes they're the truth, sometimes they're not. I try to lean towards them being mostly truthful, but um, yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
tend to lean
Yeah.
the other way where I'll like mostly lie. And if I happen to remember before time runs out on day one, I'll try to tell one person the truth. Or I might forget, and by day two, I'll start telling somebody the truth.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I think there's value in. I mean, the game wants at least a few good players lying. I mean, if you're, I mean, obviously in this script, outsiders all have an incentive to lie, mutant especially. You're a sage, you're a
Yeah.
snake charmer. You got some incentives to be lying. Um, but SMV is kind of it's a script about just an overwhelming amount of information, and it's
Hmm.
kind of what it wants players to do is just be outing that information and working through it. So some people should be lying, but I think it's harder when everybody's lying and and you're just kind of throwing random stuff at the wall, and I don't know. And it kind of makes it directionless for a while. And the worst case scenario is when all the information doesn't come out until like the final day. That dreaded round robin that I personally dislike.
Yeah, and I am 100% in the camp that if I'm the savant, I'm grabbing someone to ride or die with for sure, or maybe even two or three folks, because, like, as someone who is low on mechanical skill, if someone tries to dump savant information, like 4 days worth of it on me on like the last day, I'm not going to process any of it. Like, if you want your savant info to be used, you need to get it out there sooner so that people have time to actually process it.
Yeah.
Because I cannot process it at the speed of light. That is not me.
Yeah, I was playing in person this last Saturday. Bryant was there as well, and we were both talking about the dreaded,
Yeah.
day 4, day 5 savant dump. And then we played SMV, and sure enough,
Don't do it.
on day four,
Don't do it.
somebody they knew I said this earlier in the game, and they're like, "Okay, here comes the day four savant dump you're talking about." The best part wasn't even theirs. I mean, it was the savant had somebody else write down their info, so somebody else was info dumping their savant info.
Oh my god. Because nothing gets lost in a game of telephone.
Right, right. No,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
at
fun
the
though, but
best,
yeah.
yeah, if you're holding it and like haven't spread it around, like at least like cherry pick the relevant information to what town is trying to untangle at
Yeah.
any given time. So anyway, I will not be going Philo Savant tonight. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, so how did you discover Blow on the Clock Tower, and how long ago was that?
I have been playing for a little over a year now. My origin is very much rooted in my involvement with the Zeldathon team.
Mhm.
For anyone watching who doesn't know, I help run a charity streaming marathon event. We just had our most recent one earlier in June where we were fundraising for Charity Water, and it was super fun. But a bunch of my friends from Zeldathon all just kind of like fell down this clock tower pit at the same time last April, April 2024. And we went deep. We were like doing NRB watch nights together. And we were playing, I think, like in the first couple of weeks, we had a stretch where we played Clock Tower like 9 nights in a row or something like that. Like we were just like hungry for more. And so falling down into that was amazing. And then I just wanted more. Clock Tower is all I wanted. So for like a year, pretty much Clock Tower was my entire personality. Watching as many streams as I could, getting in as many different communities. I found the Grimoire community where our friend Bryant is a big player in as well, and was really really lucky to find just a bunch of kindred spirits in that community too. So really enjoyed playing with them. They've got some in-person games that happen near me, so I got really fortunate to immediately drop into a really solid in-person group as well through the Grim. So it's just been super fun to play a lot together. And then I think probably one of the coolest things that I've gotten to do in Clock Tower is after like the Zeldathon team got super into playing it together during last summer in 2024, our like big full event marathon, we actually produced a like live stage production that we streamed of Clock Tower, and it was a blast. We had just like a few minor technical difficulties at once, but we had like 3 or 4 different like private chat pods where we were talking in groups, and we had a whole team that was like directing and doing like the live cuts behind the scenes, and the finished product is something that like we are super proud of. It went really really well, and it was just so fun to really bring together like my 2 favorite things, which is logic puzzles and performing. um, and so yeah, I want to play Clock Tower as much as I can because I'm a yapper. I love talking to people, and I love that this game just like gives us a framework to connect with each other and like play with the truth. I feel like I've grown so much in just my general communication skills
Mhm.
since I've been playing in the past year, because like I'm always thinking about how like what I say to others and like what kind of reaction that generates, and like how to like put things in different ways to get the reactions that we need to move the game forward and hopefully win one way or another, although my win rate is not very good. But my fun rate is very strong.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are all very good points. I storytell more than I play, but I feel like that's helped me a good bit in my professional life. And from a player
Mhm.
perspective, yeah, you have to kind of talk to a group of people at a time, which can be a pretty scary thing. And at least
Yeah.
if you're like me, anyway, it can feel scary. But just kind of having that
Well,
format to do it, and
yeah, and
yeah.
as a storyteller, you're growing like serious leadership skills as well. Because I know I have like seen the advice you give to other storytellers, and it's so strong just in terms of like how to read a room, how to be able to like really keep a conversation moving, keep the game moving along so that the pace is going well and people are having fun and things aren't dragging out too long. And like you've got to be able to like really step in and corral a group in order to like provide that experience as a storyteller. So I definitely really admire your skill and also the way that you are super dedicated to supporting others and learning those skills as well.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So when you're here, learning Clocktower with the Zeldathon people, they're learning the game too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We were mostly all learning
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, that's always pretty cool because I feel like, especially in the online space nowadays, it's hard to get into Clocktower without everybody else kind of having already been, because it's kind of like established now, right? So it's kind of hard to get
Yeah.
into it, and that can
If
be
you're
a
going to find a group big enough to play, the group probably already has a meta and
yeah,
like
and it makes it a little
help
harder to
you
get into.
too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kind of like drop you into their meta, which is definitely different than like the experience that I got to have, which was our group just kind of like really like fumbling around for the first few days and then kind of having NRB as a guide, so like stumbling into the 3 for 3 thing and then bridging past that and going further and being like, oh wait, we don't actually have to do that, like there's lots of different ways that we can play this game. Although I will say my group still has a little bit of a meta where even when I'm good I get read as evil.
It's something that, for whatever reason, attaches to some people. They just always read as evil no matter what. Some people read as good no matter what, even when they're evil.
I
And
take it as a
yeah,
compliment because they can't tell a difference in the way I act when I'm good and I'm evil. That's how I like to think of it.
I also think it's interesting too that the online meta is very different from how the game started out in person. So you all learned mostly from Neuro's Bard, but if you didn't have Neuro's
Right,
Bard, you wouldn't know what a 3 for 3 is. And
right.
for a long time in this game's existence, people didn't do a 3 for 3. That just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So
Or like
so
private chats weren't a thing.
yeah, and I love playing in person when because some groups, and I don't know how y'all play, but some groups basically mimic the online game where they do fully go into a separate room to chat. But really, the game wants you to, and technically, the game wants you to stay in the same circle. And I think
Yeah.
I think the game, it makes the game more interesting when that risk of being overheard, and you have to kind of, you can communicate, but you do have to be careful about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. At the same time, I don't know, sometimes I can feel a little more brazen in person, just turning to a neighbor and saying something really quick. When I know, because like you can
Hmm.
read the group better than you can online. So the big downside of online is just you've got the like mono audio. We can't all talk over each other at the same time.
Yeah.
And the whispers sure tell on you in the online game now. And there are definitely people who are just able to like track anything that happens on the screen. Like I never once look at who's talking to who in the private chats on the side. Like it's not my game to play. I trust that there are others in the circle who are going to collect that information. Or notice when like little envelopes are flying in between each
Yeah.
other because mm, my neurotype does not catch on to that kind of stuff. But it does notice what's happening like in vibes in between people in person. So that is definitely something that's really different in person versus online.
Yeah, I had a somewhat recent in-person game where I was a traveler, and it was the first time that storyteller ran traveler. So of course he made me evil. But
Of course. Yeah.
there's I saw a guy across from the circle. I knew he was good. I saw him point at his trouble brewing sheet, and I looked at where he pointed, and I thought that either he could be the Raven Keeper or the Virgin, because those are like kind of in that area. So
Mm-hmm.
just based on that alone, I nominated him as a traveler, hoping to use up his Virgin ability accidentally. Um,
Uh-huh.
did not work because he was not the Virgin.
Oh.
But him talking out loud, because he was a newer player, very clearly
Yeah.
made it that he was a Raven Keeper. Um,
Okay.
he's like, I don't want
So
to
you were
die
able to
during the
yeah.
day. So my demon right next to me now knew who the Raven Keeper was. So I was like, that worked. You couldn't do that online, not like that.
All right, I have a question for you, Sam.
Yeah.
As as experienced a storyteller as you are, when you are participating as a player with a newer storyteller at the helm, what is that experience like for you? Is it difficult to like reserve judgment on the choices that they make?
Um, yeah, I don't. Well, so I don't play in person near as much as I would love to, and then when I am in person, I'm usually running the game.
Right.
Even that game that where I was a traveler, I was only doing it because I needed to leave at a certain time. So let somebody else storytell. I was like, oh, I can travel. We lost on day two, so it ended up not mattering. But um,
Womp womp.
he did a fine job. I was telling somebody the other day, just in general, I do find that the more I play, the more pickier I want to be
Mm,
with my storytellers.
yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out, and I'm pretty forgiving. It's not like I'm trying to figure out how to word all this without sounding way too judgmental. I'm trying to figure out
Okay.
what the mental space is to be like. I wish this storyteller's doing this or this or this, but also not everybody's going to storytell the same. So like, it's not that big of a
Right.
deal, So you
Yeah.
just have to kind of roll with it, and maybe I have wishes that the storyteller would do differently, but at the end of the day, it's a fun game. I'm having fun.
Mhm.
Not that big of a deal. There might be some things I would be more likely to be like, I'd rather just not experience this again. But um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I know for me it was the point when the wizard dropped as the new character that I had the real turning point. I was like, I need to be really careful what games I am playing in
oh yeah,
with this on the script and who is storytelling because I think there are very few people I would trust to like truly execute that well
yeah,
and not just create something that's like
yeah,
really, really difficult. Yeah,
an atheist was already that way, right? I talked to
right.
player after player after player who is like, oh, I'll only play with atheists for some specific storytellers, and for some of them, it's like I trust like one, two, maybe two storytellers run atheists. And Wizard
Mhm.
definitely falls in that same camp, and possibly even more so than Atheist, because Atheist it's all a storyteller, which depending on your storyteller, could be good or bad. Wizard,
Right.
for myself, I feel like I do okay storytelling Wizard, but it is a bigger challenge than even Atheist.
Right. I feel like with atheists, like less experienced storytellers could potentially like fumble the game as it were the game of like is it atheist is it not atheist because like really skilled storytellers are going to be able to take a not atheist game and kind of like help lead it down a path that's like makes it seem plausible that
Mm-hmm.
it's atheist but so like I even feel a little more comfortable with atheist in that way because if it's not an atheist game, there's only so much they can do within the bounds of the game. If it is an atheist game, it might become obvious. But the wizard like just breaks the game in such a way
Yeah.
that like ooh, the finding balance is so hard. I mean, there's a reason why like the game designers spend years play testing characters before they drop them because it's really really difficult to find a way to like truly balance this. This is something I actually like dabbled with attempting to build my first script recently and because I really just haven't gotten into that side. Like I just love playing the game
Yeah.
and that's also why I wanted to choose a base 3 today to talk through because I really like I just love I don't want to call it like perfect design. Maybe TV is the perfect design of a game, but like SMV sure has its problems. But I love just how like complete these scripts feel. Whereas like
Mm-hmm.
customs, there's some very very notable ones. Extension cord is a fave for sure, but like I don't know, it's really hard to get a custom script exactly right because like these characters weren't like built for that exact environment, unlike the
Mm-hmm.
base 3 where like, they were crafted to all fit together in just this beautiful puzzle that's so much fun to play. Which is why I really prefer playing base 3 over and over again.
Yeah, Extension Cord, play tested it, pretty good amount. Happened
Mm,
to be one that people liked. Catfishing, I know, is still a
Yeah.
pretty popular script. I guess it's not as popular nowadays, but it got play tested a lot. And if you look at
Yeah.
both catfishing and extension cord, there are definitely issues. If you dig enough, and those win rates aren't like 50-50, like exactly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so even your most play tested custom scripts are not as clean as the base scripts. There's a reason why on
Mhm.
hard claim, every other week I'm running base scripts and only base scripts. We're only doing custom scripts half the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate how accessible your stream is from that perspective too, because like for new folks, I don't know, I feel like when it comes to like the clock tower content, there's kind of this like huge gap between like, kind of the NRB effect, which, in some ways like oversimplifies gameplay or like, there are some valid critiques out there of how it kind of like misrepresents what like real gameplay is actually like and how it's like really shaped meta, especially in online play. But then like after you watch your way through all of the NRB videos, then like really your next option for the most part are live streams. And these live stream channels are mostly like very experienced players
Mm-hmm.
doing very advanced things in the game. And so there's this gap in like the current clock tower content space between the like entry level, just learning the game, learning the rules, understanding the different mechanics, and then like jumping in the deep end to like weird wizard wishes and whatever else is going on. Like I love playing on the Grim streams, and I feel like starting to play with them is where I like really started to level up as a player because I got dropped in the deep end. My very first stream with them, we were playing. Shoot, I can't remember the name of the script, but it's the one that has the Snake Charmer Plus on it that
Yeah.
Evil Steve
One,
designed.
1, 2, 3, not it.
Yes. And I was a snake charmer, but the drunk.
Mm.
And I was so lost the entire time. And then the next game we played was a Legion game where I was Legion and there was a poppy grower in play. And it was my first time playing this Legion.
Oh Lord.
And I was like, yeah, I was like, wow. I have no idea what's going on. I'm so in over my head. I'm having a lot of fun. But I stuck with it and kept playing with them. And like, the growth curve went up from there. And I felt like I like really started to understand like weird, wacky mechanics of the game
Hmm.
much better. And I'm at the point where, I feel like I can pretty well process what's going on most of the time, even when the Grim, I don't know, kind of expressly tries to just like break things pretty often, which is fun. We're pushing, I think, like the creative envelope in some ways. I love what Evil Steve is doing
Yeah.
with, some of his wild ideas. It's been really fun.
Yeah, it's a fun dichotomy too because I for myself have a very different philosophy because I like trying to, and I guess this is a broad way of thinking about it, but I try to represent the game as, I guess, as normal as possible, which
Yeah.
maybe that's not really, I mean, what is normal, whatever. But I'm like, I'm that's why I want to run base scripts every other week, because that's the fundamentals of the game. If you're playing in person, it's mostly, I mean, people do play custom scripts in person, obviously, but for the most part,
Yeah.
base scripts is
It's
what you're going to
harder.
have
You have to have
access
them
to.
printed ahead of time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but that was the point I was kind of meandering my way to. Is like I appreciate that that is what you're doing because, it does offer a space for folks who are really just trying to like understand the game a little bit better and how it's supposed to be played. Because that's really what you should be spending a little more time with before you dive into the okay, let's break the game.
Yeah, I try anyway. And it's good for the players too because they can play. Yeah, I would love to run beginner focused games on stream, but the reality is I only have so much
Mm,
time.
right.
So I'm running like 16, 17 player games, which are not beginner friendly. But
It's a lot.
but for people who have already played but don't want to move on to the more advanced custom scripts, I have the every other week where if you're playing this week, it's only going to be base scripts. Play this other week, it's only going to be custom scripts, and those range from the wackier ones to maybe some of the more well tested ones.
Man.
One of the scripts I'm running, this coming weekend will have an atheist on it. They'll also have Hermit and Princess, which are the new characters. So,
Ooh,
but yeah.
very exciting.
All right. So I think you already kind of mentioned this, but so when you sit down and you go to draw a token, do you hope that it's a blue or red token?
Oh, good question. If it is red, I hope it's a minion token for sure. Um, yeah, it depends. The first like I don't know 6 months or so that I played the game, if I drew a red token, it was just this immediate like adrenaline rush, like
Mm-hmm.
feeling a little shaky, like grateful that I'm hiding behind a computer most of the time because like I'm certain people could tell that I'd be really nervous if we were together in person. Um but eventually I feel like I, turned the corner where like it doesn't stress me out
Yeah.
so much anymore. Because you know what? If we fumble the ball and I get executed on day two, oh well, we get to play more Clocktower. You
Yep.
know?
I've been there many times. You kind of get desensitized to it after after a
Yeah,
little bit,
yeah.
and you realize people aren't upset at you. People don't care. They're like, oh, okay, well, cool, good game. Now the next one.
As long as you're playing with a cool group, and if you're not playing with a cool group, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but there is something just very relaxing to drawing a blue token, unless it's the Saint. Um,
Or a damsel,
that's the
or
one. Yeah, right. Even damsel, I don't worry so much. It's like it's really the Saint because of the like such the swingy meta of it. Like especially if you don't know your group really well and feel really confident that they're not like a kill all saints type of thing. Yeah, I think Saint is the blue token that stresses me out the most. Otherwise, I'm just always curious to see what I get and what I can like what's something new that I can try today that I haven't done before. So, with this Philo token, I don't know. My friend Dave from the Grimm stream is really big on going Philo mutant. Always, he's obsessed with the mutant and always claims to be the mutant if the mutant is on the script, and if the Philo is on the script, he's definitely claiming to have gone Philo mutant. But I think it is a really interesting play to kind of like neutralize the power of the mutant
mm-hmm.
if you can find one, if there is one. If there isn't one, then you just made a mutant. So it's a big swing, but it's very interesting. And in a 12-player game, when we should have two outsiders, it's a 50-50 chance that there is a mutant in play. So that might be what I'm thinking about because I haven't done it before.
I ran a game once that had this was S&V. It had evil twin. It had twins in the game, and the
Mm.
philosopher decided to go klutz. And there was a real klutz in the game, and the klutz died and chose one of the twins, which did happen to be the good twin, but he thought he just cleared the twin pair. Technically, he did,
Oh
but he didn't.
no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, the feel had to be kind of like, I need to talk to you.
Whiffed it.
So
Oh
this
no.
wild 50-50. Well, I mean, he had, he's going off a social reading. He read it correctly. He did
Mhm.
guess a good twin, but this confirmation. He thought, oh, I just solved the twins, and then the philosopher had to come along and be like, actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
I was an evil twin once and got outed by a klutz pick not ending the game. And did my best to fight back and be like, wow, that is such a wild play. Who would ever do that? Like, that is so evil. I cannot believe that you and it didn't work out, but it was really fun. out an
But
evil is a
basically, what you need to do is,
choice.
an evil team needs to orchestrate that happening, like bluffing a klutz, and yeah, kind of throw.
I need to start a
Yeah,
list. Do you have a list of things you want to do?
I don't actually. I don't play enough, I guess, probably to like. I know people have
Yeah.
like a wish list of for like wizard, and I don't really have any like. And I don't know. I don't really like write things down, I guess, a lot anyway. So
Yeah.
I see something cool, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I should save that for later, and then I don't, and then I forget about it and never think about it for the rest of
Yeah.
my life.
I listen to the Grim Scenarios podcast when I'm like driving to and from work, and I get so many ideas out of that. Like, oh, that would be really fun to do sometime or other. And then I'm driving and I don't write it down. I don't remember what any of them were.
Our friend Manny had a play that he finally got to do and pulled off. He said he'd had this. I didn't know he was doing this at the time. I was running the game, but he had this in his back pocket. He was, or this was such a game. He was a starting demon. The pit hag
Mhm.
turns one of the other minions into an evil snake charmer. Because there was a
Okay. Yeah.
clockmaker with an evil twin that
Yeah.
was really damning for the demon. So evil twin,
Yep.
or sorry, evil snake charmer. Snake charms a demon.
Hmm.
Um, long story short, he claims to have turned, and there's a sweetheart in this game who died. He claims to have been turned into the evil twin, and then this other player is the evil aligned uh, twin or whatever. It's very confusing. A good evil twin is confusing.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure this is all making all the sense that I want it to.
You
Um,
know what though? I bet it confused town enough for them to not track down where the demon had actually moved to via the evil snake charmer.
well, here is the trick. He bluffed that he had been the snake charmer
Uh-huh.
who got sweetheart poisoned or sweetheart drunk, but then turned into the evil twin. So therefore, he didn't get an actual twin.
Oh. I think he went too deep into his own wormhole
It
there.
it worked up until
Mhm.
they planned to use a barber swap to uh, swap the demon hood back into him. Except
Okay.
the barber was the one that got sweetheart drunk because that was Nina, who was a different character, and she got barber swapped into while she was sweetheart drunk. So evil team killed her as the barber, thinking they would get a swap, and it didn't happen. So they're like, well, they had to pivot.
Yep.
But
Yep.
then they got him executed, and because he was
Oh.
a minion or he was the evil snake charmer at the time, it worked out. Anyway, that's S&D
That's a
for you.
very well coordinated evil team though. Yeah. Kudos for taking the big swings. Yeah.
It's hilarious.
I
There's two
love
evil players, the demon and the evil snake charmer, and then a good player, Matthew, who love his heart. He is very indecisive if he's in the final three, and the last good player. And they have it on Manny, and he's worried that it's a double bluff, and Manny really is a demon. Meanwhile, I'm counting down, and Manny just has this huge shit-eating grin on his face. That was the
Yeah.
game.
I think that I think what is on my bucket list in a more general way is something I want to try sometime soon is when I am the demon going full minion. Like making some weird big swings like halfway through the game when players start going, oh, she's giving minion. We need to be demon hunting
Hmm.
because giving minion is what I can do. Like, I can make weird, wild claims that nobody believes and make them like totally disregard me. So that is something that I've been like too scared to try because if
Yeah.
they do go, well, we need to execute an evil, so let's just get her out of here.
Yeah, I always like Milk's philosophy
Yeah,
of try things. Sometimes they work,
try
sometimes they
things.
don't, and
Yeah,
either way, it'll
yeah. I
probably
feel
be
like
fun.
a fake snake charming is a really good thing.
Evil needs to do fake snake charmings
Try
more
that.
often.
Yeah, yeah. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, if you don't want to
Mhm.
lose the snake charmer so much as evil, fake it more often so that people are less trusting of it.
Yep,
It's hard to do,
exactly.
but it's what people should be doing in theory. I say as I'm usually
Shatter your
storytelling.
metas. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
No, my goal as a player is to shatter menace everywhere that I can.
yeah.
Just keep it weird. Keep it weird, keep it wonderful. That's what Clock Tower is all about.
And the great thing about being a minion anyway is that you exist to try to keep the demon alive. It doesn't matter if you get killed. Um,
Yep.
yeah, you're a distraction. And I've seen wizards are a great example of that. I've seen a lot of wizard wishes that don't really do a lot for evil, but they distract a good team. And if they're distracted,
Yeah.
it means they're less likely to be going after the demon. Um, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And then
Absolutely.
I've told this story before, but I had a in person at a new player who naturally she drew the imp token because why not?
Always. Yeah.
Um, she has the three bluffs, and I pull her aside on like day two. I was like, so what are you claiming to people? And she's like, oh, I'm just claiming a little bit of everything. Like she like completely ignored her bluffs. I was like,
Great.
I'm like, you're going to fit right in with this game.
Yeah. Good job. That's awesome.
And you know what? She won that
Whether it was
game.
on purpose or not. She did. Yay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. Yeah. Yep.
Well, so what kind
Getting
of
double claims. Don't fear them. It's fun.
Oh, I try to tell people that all the time. They don't really believe me, but I'm like,
Yeah.
we call them demon bluffs because they're the bluffs the demon gets. They're for the demon. If the minions can get them, great. But again, this is a game designed for people to play within a circle. Yes, you can get up and talk to each other, but you're right here, like next to everybody else. Sharing those bluffs isn't always easy. So
Yeah.
as a minion, you need to kind of strike off on your own and make it work if you can.
Yeah.
Again, be a distraction.
Yeah, I know. The trick is like finding the balance between like, not being observed as coordinating with your team, but also like finding a little time to coordinate with your team,
Yeah.
especially in, a game like S&V where like there's a lot that could happen, but like a pit hag is I don't want to say useless, but like not necessarily going to contribute to the team unless there's a plan for what's going to be happening.
One of my favorite memes is the quote unquote slow baron, which is what people refer to a pit hag who just makes outsiders. The slow baron.
Sure.
Plus two
Yep.
outsiders, but it takes 2 extra days.
Takes 2 extra days. Yeah.
Uh,
But oh baby, the
but,
outsiders on this script are
but no,
so
I
good.
like I said, I had that one game where the pit hag made one of their other minions an evil snake charmer, and it's a
Hmm.
great way to move the demon around without any
Yeah.
no clean barber swap, no fangu jump, no you know double kill or no kills. It was great. And
What other townsfolk like would lend themselves to like being pit hagged into evil?
philosopher, hidden
Oh.
drunk, hell yeah,
Yeah.
drunk that
Interesting.
savant. Also, real quick on that
Yeah.
savant or the savant in that game, I got to give as one of the pieces of information that there was one evil townsfolk in play. I loved it.
Yes, in this game with no bounty hunter on the screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
Were
no.
they able to work it out? Did they figure or did they just assume that that was incorrect?
I don't know if they ever did narrow down that one. I don't
Mm.
think. I think the savant stayed alive pretty long on that game, if I remember. Um,
Blessing and a curse.
yeah.
Yeah.
It happened to be one. I'm awful at running savant, but that ended up being one
I
of my
would
better savant days running it. I was like, oh, I had some good info that game.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, evil philosopher is fantastic. Evil Dreamer can be not too bad if people aren't really being forthcoming with their claims, and you can kind of, just kind of check people and gain some trust. Be like,
Yeah.
oh, I saw you as the town crier. I saw you as town crier or the witch. They're like, oh, well, the town crier. Nobody else knew that, so yes, that's a
Yeah, but is
possibility.
it worth
Yeah,
sacrificing like a minion to get that kind of information?
it's just always going to depend.
Yeah.
You know, a witch sacrificing a witch maybe. Um, maybe a Cerenovus isn't really doing much. Maybe you want to frame that a Cerenovus died,
Yeah.
like got
That's
executed.
exactly what I was about to say. Yeah.
You can make good demons. You can make or good minions even. Those are those are all possibilities. Or I've seen some people they want to make other good players into a flower girl when they wouldn't have been paying attention to the votes the day before.
That's so mean. Almost as mean as like Sarah locking someone as the savant for the entire
Yeah.
game.
You can make them into a juggler, and then the next night turn them back away from the juggler again. So
Useless juggler.
yeah,
Juggler who dropped all the balls.
there's options.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So many options. This
Uh,
game is so fun.
yeah, I've seen people advocate for making good Vortoxes more often to kind of mess with information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
although it's so transparent, that I almost feel like that would backfire because, like,
it,
hopefully a
it,
good Vortox is going to come out and say that they're a good
oh yeah,
Vortox.
it just
And
kind of goes back to the whole distraction kind of thing.
yeah, yeah, but then you can reverse engineer all your information to. Okay, here's a question. Rules question. If, like, say it was a no dashi game and you put a good Vortox in play, the poisoned no dashi players, if they were information receiving players, do they have to get false information even if they're poisoned because
Yeah.
there's a good Vortex in play?
Yeah, so basically, drunkenness and poisoning, if they have an information ability, it makes it arbitrary.
Yeah.
But the Vortox has to be false.
Forces.
So
Yeah.
it's like you couldn't give them true information and arbitrary information. It has to be, yeah, it works out to
Yeah.
have to be false, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know if the distraction would be worth the trade-off in like being able to like verify information based on that.
It's just always going to depend, really. And online S&V, I don't know if you found this in playing in person versus online. But online SMV is a whole lot harder for the evil team because everybody can so much easily
Yeah.
write down their information, keep track of it, recall it. They can recall 5 days of bond info because they've typed in a notepad. You can write it down in person, and I've seen it happen, but correlating all that information is just a lot harder in person,
Mm-hmm.
or it's meant to
Yeah.
be anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. I in a recent in-person S&V game, I was so excited because we got to the end of the game and like, I've been working the game. I think I was like a town crier that time, and I was able to work out that I'd been poisoned, and therefore the person sitting next to me was a witch who was vigor killed on, night 2 or whenever it was, and then all these other things. And we get to the end with the grim reveal, and like the characters were who I thought they were, and I was like, yes, I solved SMV in person. I didn't even take notes. And the storyteller was like, yeah, you had like a right answer, wrong math kind of situation going on. And it turns out like I misremembered what night the like witch had been killed. And like the information wasn't exactly what I thought it was, but
I
we got there in the end.
We played in person. We played an atheist game. It ended up being an atheist game, but I had a
Wow.
kind of similar experience where atheist vizier on the script. So of course the atheist is announced as a vizier, and we're trying to figure out, okay, is it actually atheist? Is it actually vizier?
Uh-huh.
Complicated by the fact that there were 2 or 3 re-racks. There was like multiple re-racks in a row because the storyteller just unfortunately kept messing up, and they were like not atheist games. And finally, she put made it an atheist game, and then didn't mess up. But Vizier works where a good player has to vote on something to push through an execution.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, okay, the Vizier and this one specific player voted on an execution, and she successfully pushed it through. So if it's not atheist, this player is good. If it is atheist, it doesn't matter. The same player is telling me that there's Cazelli on the script. He told me he was woke up in the night and told that he was a goblin. Yeah. So I'm trying to be like, okay, I think this means it has to be an atheist game because he has to be good for this Vizier thing to have worked. Until somebody told me, oh, actually, a third person had voted that day.
Oh.
I spent like 2 days world building off of these two, and only these two players voted, and it worked.
Uh-huh.
And then somebody's like, no, somebody else voted. I'm like, okay,
Oh.
cool.
Okay.
We got there in the end anyway,
Gotcha.
but
Yeah, right. So in my head, I was still trying to work through. Wait, so if there's a vizier, how is there a question if it's an atheist game or not? But it was because of the Kazali, and the like storyteller could have just like woken people up and told them whatever they want.
yeah.
So
Well,
yep.
if you're so this guy he told me that he drew the saint token and that he was woken up and told that he is the goblin. Also, Poppy Girl was on
Mm.
the script, so he didn't learn an evil team. There should only be two minions in this game, so Vizier, Goblin, but also, if you're familiar with Bryant's kid, a young
Yeah.
lad who likes to play Clocktower, um,
I have
and he
played
is
with
young,
him.
so um,
Yeah.
he is basically he's outed to people that he's the poisoner, and he tells everybody that he's drawn the poisoner like drew the poisoner token, which turned out not to be true. Turned out he drew another token and then was told he was a poisoner, and he was waking up
Oh
and
no.
poisoning people at night. So that made it a lot more difficult to sort out because we're like, okay, why is there three minions if it's not? But also, the storyteller told us she wouldn't pass out an evil token, and it turns out the kid was just like lying the whole time.
So was it actually an atheist game?
It was actually an atheist game,
It
and there
was
were,
actually an atheist
and
game.
basically she woke up two players and told them that they were a minion, implying that it was a
Mm-hmm.
Poppy Girl Kazali game.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and meanwhile, when we woke up, the atheist
Wow.
was announced as a vizier. So, kind of talking, working with everybody, we realized there's three minions, which must mean it's an atheist.
Hey, all right. There you go.
Like I said, we got there in the end, but kids are kids, so it was pretty funny. But he made it a lot more difficult. He's like, no, I drew the poisoner token. He was just playing as outed evil because he's not really thinking is it atheist, is it not atheist. He's just thinking, oh, I'm the poisoner who's
Right.
outed and poisoning
Right.
people at night.
And like didn't think through the difference between drawing the poisoner token and being told, yeah, poisoner. Woof.
Yeah.
Woo.
Brian asked him, was like, did you draw the poisoner
Um,
token? He's like, yeah.
See, chaotic, so fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Kids
it's
are
good
great
stuff.
for shattering metas. They
Well,
don't care.
so in that S&B game that I mentioned too, I was the klutz, not just blind claim town crier, which worked for a pretty good while, and
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize until the grim reveal that uh, the kid, I don't want to say his name, but he
Mm-hmm.
apparently he was the starting Fangu who jumped after like a couple of nights to the other outsider because there only should have been one outsider. And I had no idea he was a Fang. I had no idea he was a demon. I just kind of interacting with him like, hey, what are you? And he's like, what are you? And I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the town crier. So he said he's the oracle, and then night two, he's like, oh, I got an oracle, zero. He said he got zero. I was like, okay, well, I think that means it's not a vortex. I'm world building with him, whatever. He dies at night. It's like, well, he's good.
Yeah.
No idea until that grim reveal that he was starting demon.
I know. I try to be like really generous with him, especially when I'm good. Like, just like, yeah, let's be on the same team. And then he like totally takes me for a ride. I'm like, oh, okay. It's definitely Bryant's kid.
Yeah.
Reads the same whether he's good or
We
evil.
we do games at Lexicon, and we get a lot of younger kind of kids, teenagers or younger than teenagers, and they're a blast to play with, and they love it,
Yeah.
and they're really good at it. Because you
Yeah.
don't know how they're going to behave, and they just kind of do whatever chaos, and you can't predict it, and it's fantastic.
Love it. Yep. Yep. So fun.
So I wanted to ask if there were any particular characters that you like to play, or any particular characters that you avoid playing, whether they're minions or
Hmm.
townsfolk, or just whatever.
That's a great question. So I mentioned before I'm like very low on mechanical skill. So if I draw like the flower girl or town crier token, like I'm gonna try to bring my growth mindset to it. And like do my best. But my best is not gonna be very good. So I will probably try to find a friend who it does have more of that skill to help me work through whatever information I'm getting, help me watch the votes, that kind of stuff. Because like I'm such a social player. As like a very social player, I do love the type of roles that kind of like give you a framework to like try weird things like gossip whatever the hell you want and do something different. Something like artist is always fun because I love to try to like read the to like I'm almost never gonna spend it on day one or two. Like I wanna take the risk for maybe a greater reward and like
Yeah.
try to see what's going on in the grim. And like I I definitely respect the value of just going in with like the very simple like is the demon on this half of the grim or not? Like that can solve games 100%. But I'm not interested in doing something that everybody else has done before. So I'm gonna try to figure out if there's another way that I can like try to ask a question to parse out, or like find the truth if like there's a point of confusion somewhere. Find an artist question that's gonna help us clarify something rather than just, cut the grim in half one way or another.
I struggle with artist questions, probably for the same reason I struggle as a ST doing Savant or Amnesiac or Fisherman.
Mhm.
Like I don't have that
Mhm.
creative spark to come up with a
Yeah.
what's a good, fun, interesting question. I'm just not good at it. I always like to talk about how Empath is like one of my like perfect characters for me to draw. It's very simple, straightforward information.
So mechanical.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It's easy to parse what it's supposed to mean, and it's up to you. Like you have options of how you want to play it. Empath zero. Me, I'm probably just not even going to bother with my. Like I'm not going to try to kill off who I think are good neighbors to try to get better numbers most of the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Empath one, now that's spicy, you know. And of course, Empath two,
Mm.
like you're just going all out. But yeah,
Mhm.
Empath is like for me, like, kind of like the perfect role. I feel like.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. I'm also very fond of Tea Lady for no particular reason other than a game I played one time. It was a very large game. I think we had like 17 people, and I was one of two travelers. I was a traveling apprentice, and I was evil as a devil's advocate. So I decided to go with a Tea Lady bluff because, sure, why not? And I told my two neighbors, who were both good, that I was the tea lady and or like the apprentice tea lady. And if they wanted to like check each other, we could just kill one of them and see what happened. And so one of them was the moon child and got really excited about it. And was like, yes, absolutely, nominate me, and then we'll see what happens. And so we did. We executed the Moonchild. The Moonchild immediately picked the person to the other side of me because they're like, I shouldn't have died. You must be evil. And then that person died too. So I managed to, like, with my like silly two lady bluff, take out two players all on my own. And then I traveled away and I was like, bye.
My
That was
job
a
here
rough
is done.
all time. My job here is done. I have created so much chaos in this big 17 player game. They're never going to figure this out now.
Love it.
uh, yeah. So I have real fondness for the actual tea lady too, because I mean, she's a badass. I love drinking tea, and so does she, and also protecting people. And yeah, just making friends and serving them tea. What more could you want?
Yeah. My favorite part is when I'm running the game and the tea lady makes it very obvious that they're trying to test her neighbors for, for tea lady purposes. Guess who dies of that
Mhm.
night?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun role.
There's that.
It's almost useless when it doesn't work, but like extremely powerful when it does.
Yeah, so true.
Like, and
And
it's
I
so
mean,
hard for evil to deal with sometimes.
right. And even to that point, like, I don't know, I think of the protection roles like Tea Lady or Monk as when I am playing them, like, I'm a little less concerned about secrecy, especially as the game goes on. Cause, like, one, if you're a Tea Lady, it's going to become obvious. But two, like, I don't know, I kind of see their purpose as just like absorbing the hit. Like if I die at night, like, oh well, I'm not an information roll. I just absorbed a death that could have been an information roll instead because they needed to take me out first. So, especially as the game goes on, I'm probably not going to play those too close to the chest, just to see if I can draw the hit and help somebody else keep getting info.
Yeah. And, if you do a protection, then, you might get an extra execution out of
Yay!
it because the game's going to be a little slower. And also, you
Hmm.
kind of know who the demon targeted, and that's good to know too.
Yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
it kind of goes back to the point too, where I mean, Trouble Brewing has spy on it, so they might know who the monk is anyway. Um,
Yeah,
so that kind of
yeah,
goes back to my point about how the game, generally speaking, just wants you to just be about out and open with what you are. If everybody's hard claiming, the demon and poisoner can't hit everybody all at once.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I love hard claiming as Raven Keeper. Like, what are you gonna do? Come and get me, or
Ravenkeeper is the
don't.
best example of a revolving meta because eventually people are like, "Oh, I'm the Ravenkeeper," and they're really the fortune teller. But then it
Right.
goes so far to come back around where you're hard claiming as Ravenkeeper because you want people to think you're the fortune teller, but you really are the Ravenkeeper, and then it's just a
Well,
ever
and
revolving
I make
meta.
my pitch. I make my pitch every time, and this is my pitch to the demon, whoever they may be, when I'm the Raven Keeper on day one, and we wake up, and I'm like, "All right, listen. It is actually in your interest to kill me tonight because I don't have any information about the game state right now. So if you go ahead and kill me, it's like a much lower chance that I actually find useful information. I don't know. I don't know who to check. I'm just going to be checking blindly. So, like, just go ahead, knock me out, take me out of the way, and let me get my little info, and then we'll go on. Um,
It,
if I don't die that night, I know that I'm gonna live until final three and beat the frame.
I've and this is something Emma from Grim Scenarios points out a lot. Like that actually is true. Like a Ravenkeeper being killed early on is the best use of the Ravenkeeper for evil. Now, obviously, if they can get them executed during the day, that's the best. But
Yeah, or
I
poison killed, even better.
it's very true. I've just seen so many games where a Ravenkeeper gets to really. I think a lot of evil teams in general focus too much on trying to kill the quote unquote powerful information characters and not who people think are good. So I've
Right.
seen Raven Keepers be in the last five alive, and there's all these other confirmed characters out here. So either you need to kill the
Mhm.
Raven Keeper, and now their information's way more powerful than if you killed them earlier, or they
Mhm.
might be maybe they're the frame and final three, but a lot of times they're kind of trusted. I mean, it's going to vary, but yeah,
Yeah.
it can be a real problem for evil sometimes.
Yeah, and by the same token, like I think fortune teller is a little overestimated in terms of its power because it has built-in misinformation. Like
Yeah. Or
fortune teller is tricky.
yeah, fortune teller's I mean, you can see how fortune teller plays on most customs to see how incredibly powerful it is.
Yeah.
On Trouble
Yeah.
Brain, of course, it has its own red herring, but you also have the recluse. You have a
Right.
drunk that it could
Yep.
be. You have a poisoner, and you have the fact that the demon could move. Uh, it is
Mhm.
not very. I mean, it can be powerful, but a lot of times it's not. My friend Manny, he fortune teller is his least favorite character on Trouble Brewing because he's like, this is the
Yep.
character I want to be the least because it's
Mhm.
not good information. Usually, the best you can hope for is a no on two people because
Yeah,
that's usually more
I
information
had
than a yes.
the great fortune to be the fortune teller in the Grim game the other night when we were doing the new character release with the shoot. I'm like drawing an absolute blank on that new
Uh,
Fabled.
Deus Ex
Yeah,
Fiasco.
yeah, that one. And I was poisoned night one and led to believe that I was the fiasco, which was so good. And then the second night, I checked the recluse accidentally, like I didn't know, and so I wound up with like two yeses in a row, and I did figure out the recluse thing, but like just got like absolutely led down the garden trail in terms of like I had my the world that I wound up in at the end of the game is like totally the inverse of what was actually true because I just got wrecked by the night one poison snipe, and just never being able to recover from there because of that. Oh, and I also checked the red herring later on. So like I got all of the possible misinformation that a fortune teller could have and like
Yeah.
was in shambles. I could not sort it out. And that's okay. Sometimes you eat it and it's fine.
Yeah. Well, and yeah,
I
and that's
love it.
also why it can help to be focus on the socials.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it is they do describe the game as a social deception game. Um,
Yeah.
Travel Brain actually doesn't really have that much information, and you can have setups with
Mhm.
very little information. All your information could be dead by day or two or three.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yep.
and at that point, you're all on socials.
Just got to ride it out. Yep.
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 So one other thing to bring up, it's works out because we have S&V up here. How do you feel about madness in this game?
Oh, I'm a fan. Yeah. I think Madness is a really interesting puzzle, especially as a social player, because if you get afflicted with madness, particularly like of the Serenovus type, it's such an interesting challenge to try to like find a way to still like get your information out there while like respecting the bounds of madness. And at the same time, you always have the choice, of whether you want to break the madness or not. Choices have consequences. It's another thing that I think Milk and Emma talk about a lot on Grim Scenarios is
Hmm.
how madness doesn't mean that you have to like abide by what you've been told that you have to pretend to be. But at least with many of the storytellers I play with, if I also just march into town and say, I was made mad that blah, 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 9 times out of 10, they are not going to execute me for trying to get executed. Because they're going to like leave it open for interpretation and potentially getting pinned as a minion doing a weird play. So yeah, again, it just like gives you this framework for creativity to like try different things. So I do not mind being made mad by a Sarah Novus. I don't mind drawing a mutant token because I think that is a very interesting challenge to walk. Like,
Hmm.
how do you like telegraph to people that you're the mutant without actually telling anybody because you're not allowed to. And if you ever do once, you could die at any time. Really fun challenge.
Yeah, I like how madness is basically a form of misinformation for
Hmm.
S&V, and and this also applies to Pixie or a Harpy, of course. But
Right.
I look at the how the S&V setup, and I've mentioned this multiple times because it's a kick I've been on for quite some time now. The game wants you to be claiming and talking about your information, and if you think about madness within that paradigm, madness makes a lot more sense because it expects that you're going to be
Hmm.
claiming a character. If you're a mutant, you're going to be claiming a townsfolk, and if you're claiming a townsfolk, almost every townsfolk on here has some kind of information or can get information. Same with the Serenovus. If Serenovus making somebody mad, most of the time it's going to be a townsfolk character. So
Hmm.
if you're, the on day three mad as a town crier, but you're not sharing any of your information, are you really being mad as a town crier?
Mm.
So
Is
yeah,
that how you run it? Like, do you like push your mad players to like really make an earnest effort to like share information like that?
yeah, pretty much. I've even I've been trying to get more strict about it. Because the
As you
game wants
should.
you to be strict
Yeah.
about it. I mean, the people who
Yeah.
make the game recommend you being strict about it. Because otherwise, you've probably seen this. I've seen a lot where Sarah Novus just kind of doesn't really do anything. I've especially started telling my players, if you do a 3 for 3 while you're mad at something, you're probably going to get executed. Um, because if you
Yeah. That's fair.
if I tell you that I'm the dreamer, the town crier, or the oracle, what am I mad as?
It's not an earnest attempt to convince others that you
Yeah.
are
I
whichever
also try to tell them that being mad at something isn't hard claiming to one or two people privately and then not saying anything else for the rest of the day.
Yeah, fair.
um,
Now,
yeah.
what if I was made mad as like the artist, say, and I tell people, well, I'm the artist. I haven't used it yet because I really like to wait until like later on in the game to use it. Like, is
Yeah.
that fair?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And like then we get like really far into the game and people are like, have you used it yet? And I'm just like, no, I think I'm gonna keep waiting.
The farther you get in the game, the less likely I think it is to fly. Like if there's like five players alive and you're telling everybody you're artists, but you're going to hold on to it for another day. um,
I
that
really just want to use it in Final 3.
that might be pushing it a little bit more. Although, I mean, I could see a world where it
But
works. And
what if an artist really did? Maybe that's going on my bucket list. Be an artist that makes it to Final 3 without spending my question yet.
I don't even know if this is really related, but I just thought it'd be fun for a sage to do that. Like to claim to
Ooh,
be the artist and it's
yeah.
like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna. I've seen players that like and be in their actual role. I've seen this. I think it's on TPI stream, maybe some other stream, where
Hmm.
they specifically always try to use their ability in Final Three, seamstress, or just whatever. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean that's part of it too. Is that it's so context dependent. It's going to depend on the meta of that player and the group.
Yeah.
If you're a player who really does try to use artists in the final three, then yeah. Now, maybe if I'm a
Yeah.
Cerenovus, maybe I'm not going to pick you to be mad as an artist because you're not going to be putting out any misinformation like that.
Right.
So to some extent,
Yep.
that's also on the
Context.
Cerenovus.
Yeah. So true. Yep. They got to make good
Yeah,
picks.
yeah.
Yeah.
It can particularly get weird on custom scripts. It's like, oh, how do you make a virgin who procced already mad as something other than a virgin? Like, okay,
Mm,
sure, now they got to claim something else that everybody knows is Sarah Madness. So, okay,
not
cool.
true.
What have you
Yeah.
done?
Right. Yeah. At that point, the Cerenovus doesn't deserve the kill.
The tricky thing is Sarah Madness in the final three. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this isn't exactly the same, but Nina was once a good twin. This is like day two that the Serenovus made her mad at something, and she just completely forgot.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes that happens.
And she was a good twin, so before I brought her back, I told her, "Is like, I got to execute her." I didn't get to that far. I called her into a private chat, and she's like, "I was supposed to be Sarah Med, wasn't I?" I was like, I got to execute you now, right? She's like, "Yeah, okay, that's fine." And I executed her, and that was the end of the game. And I
And then
mean,
you played more Clocktower.
we did. We played another game of SMB, and it was fine. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes madness means you gotta end the game if it
That's a
would.
that's a nice way out of the sweaty twin conundrum. It's just pull the plug. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to fight with my twin for an entire however many days
Right.
it's gonna
Yeah, thankfully, at least I like to think I have a pretty good group where, I remember early metas where people didn't really want to talk to the twins and kind of they were just kind of
Mm,
off on a
yeah.
side and people hated it. And
Yeah.
thankfully, my
Yeah.
group
When my
grew
group
past
was
that a
young,
long
we
time
had
ago.
that and it was
Yeah.
bad.
Well, it's funny too because you mentioned being like a social player, and evil twins are usually solved socially and not with the information.
Right.
So,
Yep. Yep. It's true.
yeah.
Unless a klutz is really brave.
Assuming they're not
That's the
philo
main
drunk.
mechanical way I've seen that. Yeah, right.
All right. Well, one final question here. Looking at all the characters on the script, which character would you like to be in real life?
Oh, that's a fun question. Hmm. I will say I do feel quite an affinity with both the sweetheart and the witch. Like I cannot contain my glee whenever I do draw a witch token, not because of like the power, but just because it just feels like so right. Yep, I am a witch, and everybody's gonna know it by the time we're done
And I
here.
curse you.
Yes. Yeah, and then the sweetheart, it it's a little maybe emblematic of the way that I play the game, but, like, I don't know, I try to be friendly with as many people as possible, just in general with my entire life. I have a deep I'm a people pleaser, and I have a deep need to be liked. So, I try to be sweet, but sometimes, it's not good for us, and sometimes being nice also just leads to, being unclear and, causing confusion. And so, that can happen as well. So, yeah, probably one of those 2.
All right. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Oh, well, Zeldathon happened. It was great.
You just missed it.
Um, Yeah, I'm actually really excited. Hopefully, by the time that this comes out, it'll be okay to share it publicly. If not, we can edit it out maybe. But Zeldathon is actually going to be participating in GCX coming up in July. If folks aren't familiar with it, it's a big gaming convention that fundraises for St. Jude that takes place down in Florida in the fourth week of July. But there's a fundraising stream that happens beforehand, and Zeldathon's going to be doing a fun little takeover on the stream on Sunday, July 20th from 4 to 8 p.m. It's going to be a weird, wild, chaotic, good time. We've got some really fun, different kind of like Zelda content planned to showcase a lot of different games and fun challenges. So definitely check that out. It's not exactly Clock Tower related, but if you like Clock Tower and you like chaos and having a fun time, Zeldathon team really will deliver for you. So that's my big plug right now.
All right. Well, Mags, thank you for joining us this week.
Thank you, Sam. This was so much fun. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no problem. Then thank you all for watching. We'll be back next week with another episode of Hard Claim.